So first off, I've been wanting to do this with you guys probably from the day that we all sat at that Mexican restaurant. We probably me and you sat. Well, first off, I sat there for 4 hours. You sat there for 3 hours. You sat there for 2 hours, I think, because we sat there for a long time, just kind of talking about how do we try to put a deal together to figure this out and if we could partner. And no, I wish I knew what I knew now about the amount of success that you guys had, because I didn't really understand the depth of it. I mean, Nora, when we met that day, I didn't even know that you were the president coming in, the president-elect for 2024 of NAREP.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know you were like I think we kind of started talking about it, but I had no idea, right? So what I started to realize is the amount of success that you guys have had together as a brother and sister team. So I'm here today with Nora Aguirre and Juan Aguirre. Both are partnered on a team at Century 21 Americana. And then Juan, you guys did this brilliant strategy where you branched off, learned how to do the lending side after being in real estate and real estate investing. And now you handle all the deals for the family. And so, you know, as a family business, but what's remarkable with what you guys are doing is that at a time when affordability is at an all-time high, affordability, I should say, is at an all-time worse. Rates are at an all-time high. And the market is just probably one of the hardest markets we've seen in a long time. You both continue to thrive in your business. I look at the amount of leads you're touching, and it's just insane. So when affordability kind of trickles down a little bit and starts to become within the American dream becomes a grasp, you guys are going to make a significant run for it, and you already are. I mean, I just see Juan, I don't know if you know this, but Juan every month is the highest productive loan officer we have, period. He is by far doing more applications than anyone else. And so when we look at that, we're like, we got to talk, because there's a success that you've had here. And for anyone listening to the Breakthrough podcast, you know that this podcast isn't about necessarily just a success, but it's all about everything that it took to get there. You're Latinos, you're successful, you come from a family of immigrants, people who, you know, made this country what it is, and you've now become a voice in the community for people that are, you know, in the same situation and helping them find ways to become homeowners. So let me start with just kind of giving that background, and thank you guys for coming today.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you for having us, Chris.
Whenever Juan wants to talk, I'll let him talk, because you know, we're often on camera or whenever, and he says that I steal his thunder. So just
there will be no thunder to be stole today, because Juan is coming out today. This is going to be his day.
My thunder. She just talks a lot.
Yes. So I mean, I don't know what you want to say. I didn't know, Chris. I didn't know that you know he's one of the highest producing as far as on the Loan Depot side. Know. I did know. Okay. I mean, we strive pretty hard. We work really hard. I think that's one of the biggest things is that we've been in a difficult niche since we've been in business. And so now that the market is where it is, that it's tough, I feel that this is where really our true colors really get to shine, because we understand how hard it is, you know, and we've been in this market for a long time where our customers don't necessarily have all the tools, all the information. They always have credit challenges. Affordability is always a challenge for them. And we've made a niche of working with first-time home buyers. So they've always been struggling, especially when we cater to kind of our minority buyers, right? So we've been in this, and that's actually the reason why Juan became a loan officer, because we absolutely needed more options. We needed kind of a system, and we had a vision always on how we wanted our customers to be taken care of. And so we always knew that our customers needed more time. They needed to be nurtured. They needed to be educated. We needed to help them, you know, with credit questions. We needed to remind them of their commitment to buying, because life is hard. And when you're trying to make, you know, ends meet, you know, sometimes buying a house ends up going to the back of the list, although it should be one of the most important things for you and your family. it goes to the back because you're dealing with other issues. You're dealing with, family problems. You're dealing maybe with health issues, with work, right? And so buying a house is a luxury for many people, and they will leave it to the end of the list. So for us, it was really obvious that we needed to be there, constantly reminding them of what they told us they wanted to do, right? They wanted to buy, but obstacles get in the way, and we're just constantly there nurturing and reminding. So we felt that it was hard to get partners in the lending space that really wanted that were really ready for that commitment. I think that's what we spoke about in our meeting, right?
That's what we did,
day, is that we're very committed to our niche. We're very grateful for the business we have today, and really for the opportunity to grow our wealth through real estate. That we want to. This is a way of us giving back to our clients that keep on bringing us more business, that keep on bringing their family, their friends. Is making sure that we're always giving them more. We're giving them the more than they even know they need. And in this market, we know that those that continue to bring in business and the opportunity for growth are those that are providing more than what is being asked of them. And it's not easy. It's not easy to be, a lender that provides all of these resources because sometimes financially, you're not there. You're not really, you're going through so many, apps. I know that on Juan's side.
Yeah, financially, sometimes it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense sometimes. But, right now especially. But, we were doing the math on a deal the other day where we were looking at just the median income or the average income for Phoenix. And then could you buy a house? And were there houses available for that amount? And it was like such a small, nothing I even want to recommend. But if you were like really dead set on getting a house, there's a couple out there for you, right? And but sometimes it just doesn't make sense, and we understand it. But putting somebody on a path to home ownership is really what the big picture is about. So you said something yesterday that I latched onto. So you were speaking at an event in Phoenix, Arizona, and you said that there was a point where you were making a certain amount of money. I think you said like 60 grand, and your parents were like, you've made it. Like you've crossed over the threshold of what our family's capable of doing and celebrating it. But something in you said it's not enough. And not only did you create a path of home ownership for yourself, but then you started saying, okay, let's invest. Let's get into, apartments, multifamily. And Juan and I talk about it all the time, about how he underwrites deals, how he's looking for deals, and how you try to scale that. But I think it doesn't stop with just home ownership. And I think the people that know you and follow you and watch your YouTubes and watch everything, they're looking at it and saying, that's the destination. You've now removed the box that they're living in. Because for me, I'm very similar to you guys in the sense that, my dad sold tires for a living. So he was on his feet 14 hours a day, just hustling, right? Like selling tires. And when I think about that, he just worked from Monday through Saturday, never took a day off, just was always there. And his behaviors, I were ingrained in me. So he would get home. If he had a drink, I had a drink. If he got home and watched TV and that's what he did, that's what I did when I started growing. Then I realized my behaviors and my habits are going to dictate how I behave in business and whether or not I'm going to be able to break out of it. So what you guys do is you've now created visibility to the Latino population and really just millennials in general, that they can now look at themselves and say, if they can do it, I can do it. And that's really who we want to connect with, is that individual that's in the community saying, how did they do it? So you created like a YouTube channel, you're on the radio. What is that messaging that you're using to capture all the leads that you're doing? Like what when you go on there, what is your intent to get somebody to pick up the phone and call you?
Yeah, I would say that pretty much the idea here is that if you're renting and you're going through all the steps and the motions to be a renter, you can easily also go through the motions and the steps to become a homeowner. And then I'm really just hitting them with parts of the statistics that are out there for people that are owning versus renting. but also the emotions, the feelings. I remember, I mentioned it yesterday, but I was in college. I wanted to be, a social worker because that was going to be the biggest contribution for my family, I felt. And so I remember one of the sociology, I believe, in college. It was so interesting.
College,
it was actually sociology because it was a study of, your society and et cetera. And they did an exercise at the college and they were like, okay, everybody, all the students stand in one straight line and I'm going to ask you guys a question. Depending on the question, I'm going to tell you take 2 steps forward, 1 step forward, 1 step backward, et cetera, right? I remember that exercise so clearly because it said, okay, growing up, if you, grew up with a computer in your home, take 1 step forward. If you grew up with your parents graduating high school, take 1 step forward. If you grew, if you're a minority, take 1 step backward. If you were an immigrant, take 1 step backward. And
you were at the back of the room pretty fast.
If you rented, it was crazy. If your parents owned their home, they didn't say rent, but if your parents owned their home, take a step forward. And I remember it so clearly. And for me, it was just like, it's a reality. So at the end of the exercise, it was like, see where you really are. And those are the advantages that you already had, like out the gate, right? Kind of because of your parents.
Yes, absolutely.
Or because of where you grew up or how you were brought up. And so for me, it was just so interesting. And I wasn't necessarily a realtor at that time. It was just like one of my first classes. But I remember how owning a computer, how your parents have, having an education, how owning your own property, all were steps forward for you. And so I go through those motions as well.
I think there's a silver lining to that because now now looking back is at the same time, it was also the reason why we're doing everything that we're doing because we didn't have those advantages, right?
Absolutely.
So there's definitely a silver lining to that.
There is.
And I think that's what pushed us because we always felt like, shit, we're the underdog in every situation.
Do you still feel like that? Like to this day, when you walk into rooms, do you feel like there's a chip on your shoulder every now and again? Like people, you walked into yesterday, you don't go to the events very often, right? So you walk into that room yesterday, you automatically get the sense that people don't understand the level of success that you've hit so far. Do you feel that chip on your shoulder?
I honestly think that I don't. Obviously there's going to be, different levels of rooms that you walk into. But for the most part, I think that we've, realized that as long as we work really hard, like the way we have, we're going to be just fine. We're just going to be fine in just any, in most rooms, we're going to do okay. But I think starting out, that wasn't the case for sure.
I feel it all the time. Like I feel like I don't know why, but I feel like the way we came up or the way that I came up, I can speak for myself on it, but I feel like there's a proof there. I have to prove something a lot of times. And so, but I love that but I do see it with you, the amount of confidence that you have. It does crack me up because we had a conversation.
100%, Chris. I'll tell you that when you ask him that question, it's like, no, he always thinks he's always highly confident, overly confident.
I think it's just a situation that I'm super competitive. So it's like, if you put me in in my mind, I have to win, right? So that's, I think, where the confidence comes from. Not necessarily
but that's it. But that's, I wonder where that comes from. Like, not everybody approaches life like that I have to win. Yeah. I start off with, I suck, and then I got to talk myself. There's a conversation that happens.
No, trust me, there's rooms where I'm like, shit, I do suck, but I know that, as long as I'm willing to fight, and do the work, I know I'll be fine, right? So every time that we've done that, especially when we do it together, we always do good. So I always have that mindset,
But see, he does, I do not, right? We're completely different in that way, and I believe
I tell her to just get over it.
Yeah, he's always. Yeah. I think that's what the.
But you need that. But you need. Yeah, you do need that.
It's a great combination because and let's talk about, like, if we go back to our family. I think that we have our families, right? Our foundation. Like my mom's side of the family, they're highly confident people, like just naturally. It doesn't matter if you don't have anything. They walk in a room and they just feel like they're the most handsome. They're the most like, right? They're the tough, and it's just natural. And we've talked about this. We're like, it's crazy. Like we may not have nothing, but we're just standing tall and very, and it just comes from that, right? For me, it's the same, and I think it's because I'm very aware, and I've been around. I think
it has to do with they're a little crazy, so I think
it
has to do a little bit with
but it helps, right? Like it helps, yeah.
And he grew up,
I grew up around my uncles, and it was.
And he grew up around the uncle, just showing up. Like it doesn't matter if you have nothing. He's showing up, and he just thinks he's the hottest thing in the room.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
And
I love this.
Yeah. And for myself, it's a little different because since I was little, I was very aware. Like there's people that are very intelligent and being ESL, right? Like so when both Juan and I were born in Mexico, so our parents brought us here young. I mean, Juan was pretty much a newborn. I was 6-7 years old, and ESL is a real thing. So you're in these classes, but on top of it, you're definitely. I do remember that. You're definitely not. You're not going to the best schools in the city. You're going to the schools where everyone's just kind of trying to survive. Like you mentioned something yesterday, which is really awesome. You're like, I understood my disadvantages and I needed to learn how to survive. Like
I love how you didn't say the disadvantages I said, but yes, I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's not mine to share, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. And so the disadvantages that you had, you were very aware and you understood you needed to kind of offset or do double or do this to kind of offset that. So it's very real. Like it's survival. Even though you're young, you're like, what do I need to do? So for me, I just kind of wanted to pick up. I wanted to, be out of those classes in a way. But I didn't get the education that I really should have, that I feel today that I should have received. Even today, so when I walk into certain rooms or when I speak English, and then also Spanish, we can kind of unload that as well. When I speak English, it's like I have a lot of insecurities around how I manage the English language. How I
do you think in Spanish first, or are you now in English now?
I think it's the opposite.
I think in English, but
since you're in both worlds.
You're in both worlds, and you weren't in the best. You didn't go to the best school. You weren't educated, and so for our parents just felt proud. Which I think one of the biggest things that we talk about, which is really interesting, because I think there's parents that are really hard, and that's why our parents were always just very proud of us.
As long as you graduate high school, it was just don't do drugs or
don't get pregnant. My parents is just don't get pregnant. Graduate high school, and we're proud. They're proud of you.
Yes.
They're just happy. The bar was so low from my mom and my dad, which is wonderful today, right? The bar is low. They loved us, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we still have today is that we had that kind of guaranteed love in a way, where they just kind of felt like as long as we stayed out of trouble, they were going to be okay with. We were going to get that right. Check. What is it that we were going to check that off? We've made our parents proud. And so for me, it was just oh, okay, so I don't need to go to these elevated classes or strive to do that. So what I'm saying with that is...
So why do you think that we strive for more? If I remember my dad always telling me,
it's a weird question.
Just get an easy job, just get an easy, where you don't have
Where did that come from? That's the question. Do you remember the time where you were, or either of you, the moment where you were I need more.
I know I don't know if you want to.
You share it. You share it.
So for me, I think it was. I want to say we never really had any real needs growing up.
Okay.
Where it's what are we gonna eat today, or we don't have clothes. But we, growing in America, you watch other kids or you watch other people they have a different lifestyle.
They have more. They have a different access to
different
more, right?
lifestyle. And for us, it was just we kind of knew our parents because we've always been very conscious, right, about our situation.
Yep.
Our parents work hard. My dad made $4 or $5 an hour working at a golf course, and so we were conscious of where the hell are they going to get the money? If I want something that cost has a certain price tag, I'm shit. My dad's not gonna, even if I tell
oh yeah,
they would still be you're crazy. We're not gonna get you that.
Yes.
But we wouldn't even ask because we didn't really put them in that situation because we were always very conscious of the reality, right? right? So I think
So money was always a thing in your household. Like you understood it as a kid. Like
100%.
yeah, Nora had a job since you were like what 14,
13 years old.
13,
Wow.
14
Yeah.
years old, like working at the flea
market.
outdoor
The flea market. Yeah.
He followed. You were like 9
Yeah,
years
I was
old.
like fucking.
Do you remember the culture? Like I grew up in flea markets too. My parents had a
I
shop
hated
at
that
one.
shit, like-
Dude, I know, but there was like a
But it
whole
was
like
you got paid like $10.
the nachos
and-
there. You know, did they have a concession stand where you can get
Yeah.
like? Oh man, that just was like there is a whole. It's almost like just one step up from being a carny. You know, like a working in carnivals, like is the flea markets. You know, but oh my gosh,
you know what? They're an amazing foundation.
Yes.
I'll tell you.
Yes.
So they're an amazing foundation for somebody that's a hustler. And that might have been part of like what you're experiencing. Like Juan says. So my parents, like I remember wearing like again. When you're growing up and going to school, you're aware that you can't wear that type of clothes because your parents can't afford it. So I remember like I have a picture when I was like in 6th, 7th grade, and I was like in this school where if you were in the crowd, you were dressed up because you can kind of defend your territory. But I remember wearing like a full pink. Now it's cool, right? Like a full pink sweatsuit, sweatpants, like that my parents were able to buy me at Walmart, right?
I don't remember, but it must have been ugly.
So he was like, it was terrible, right? But that's what they can afford. And I was never ashamed of what they could provide. But I knew that if I could put in a little bit of my work, like I didn't want to ask them and put them in that position. So I was going to go work for it.
But if you think about that though, like if you think about your son, the amount of pressure to go and work at the age of 13.
Yeah.
Like, my daughter is, like when she was, my oldest is when she was 13, there's no way I could have let her out into the world to go work. Right. Yeah. But for me, I wanted that hustle. Like I wanted my own money. Everything was always like, I wanted money for the same reason. And I do remember the day that it hit me. And this is a funny story, but I had a girlfriend who we broke up. She started dating some like older guy that was just old enough to work, and he got her a Dooney and Burke purse. And like, I was like, what I went and figured out how much they were. And I was like, how does somebody this age get that kind of money to buy a Dooney and Burke purse? Right. So I was like, I got to go get a job. Like that was and then from there it's, and then I've been working ever since. But I do think that whatever it was, right. Like we just wanted to be at a level that was beyond our parents, what they can do. And that breakthrough is a big deal for a lot of people. So for people that are listening, one of the things, and Nora, I think you have a really good way to explain this, better than most. Being in rooms, like you just interviewed Barbara Corcoran.
Yeah.
Right. So by the way, that was my favorite of the entire event. But when you're leading up into that, there's got to be a sense of nervousness because you're dealing with one of the world's most financially stable women in the world, and she's allowing you to sit right next to her. I mean, I'm sure she was paid, but you get to go in. You were selected to go in and do this, right?
By NARAP's leadership, absolutely.
So then, leading up to that, I would be so riddled with nerves on going into that. So you've been in rooms with so many people, and then you realize there's got to be a moment that still, even though there's nerves, that you're like, you know what, they still put on their shoes the same way I do. They still do the same. And when you talk to them, they're really down to earth people. But what do you attribute that to? Like, and how do you manage getting into rooms and networking? Because you're the president of NAREP, because people see what you're doing and what you're about to do. And people are recognizing you as a leader in the industry. What do you attribute all that to?
So I will say that it's through other people seeing I would say my potential possibly faster than I've seen it for my own self, right? And so I think that's a big thing where in a way they're saying, no, I think you can do it. Like I like something, there's a connection, they like it. And for me, I'll tell you, I second guess myself so much. So the idea, it's like when I got that call specifically for Barbara from our national team, hey Nora, we thought, Barbara, you could be the moderator. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't tell her. I was like, okay, you think so? If you think so, then I guess, yes, put me in. Right. Put me in, coach. But then after the call, I'm like, hold on. Like what I said yes, and now I have to prep for it. And now I have to do, because like I said, I have my insecurities about my ESL. I have my insecurities. Like for me, it's not easy to remember scripts. It's not easy to do all these things. So I have to, do double the work if necessary to make sure that I am prepped, right? And so for me, it's been a lot of the people that have believed in me, not letting them down and doing what I need to do to be prepared for that, right? It's been a big one. The other one is, they're letting me in the room. So clearly, hopefully somebody here that's smarter than me made this decision, and I'm not going to mess it up, right?
How many times, sorry to interrupt, but how many times have you been in a room, whether it's a dinner with really, just remarkable people and wealthy people, and that you're sitting there and have an out-of-body experience, like, how the fuck did I end up in this room? Like, tell me about a time when that's happened. Like, can you think of one? Okay, yes.
It's often, I'm like, what, and for me, it's always the question of, there's a reason why I'm here.
Yes.
And I need to know why I'm here. Like, I'm picking up I'm very, analyze and I observe a lot. So I'm sitting in there and then I'm like, what am I contributing? Because I always feel that way, that if I'm here, it's because I'm supposed to contribute in some way. So why am I here? Because,
That's
wealthy,
a good point.
Absolutely. Wealthy people are people that, value their time tremendously. It's important. They're going to have dinner. They're going to sit around people that they, either can, be mentored by, can do business with, can grow. So I'm like, why am I here? And many times what I've, understood is that I'm here because I bring a real and raw perspective on, what my Latino families are dealing with. And I'm very open and I'm not shy about putting everything on the table. I'm very transparent. So, what do we need to do, right? What do we need to do? And so sometimes it's refreshing to some of these folks to really get that, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, I'm going to tell you how it is. I care about how I look, in front of your eyes, but I also care about my passion and my mission more than looking good, right?
That's a good point.
So I will make, I'm willing, and I think that's another thing too, and we talked about that with Juan, like I'm willing to make a fool of myself in a way. Okay. Like even if I'm put on stage and I'm like, and I mess up, I'm okay with that.
That's a long road though. That is a long road
okay
too. Yeah.
With that, it's. I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt because I'm like, there's been moments where I'm like, I totally screwed that up. Like, I'm in a room in a table and I'm like, why? How did that come out? Why did that come out? Like I shouldn't have said that. But I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't beat myself up to the point where I'm like, I'm ashamed.
Yep.
Like, I'm okay. Like if I make a complete fool of myself, I'm okay with it. And I think that's part of the reason why I've been able to just continue to navigate through being around people that I don't know why I'm there, or I am completely insecure on why I'm there. And because I'm okay with making a fool of myself. At the end of the day, I say, on my end, and I think we say that, in our family, it's like, at the end of the day, I know that I have the core already there, which is my family's admiration and love. So even if I make a complete fool of myself in front of anyone, I still have that.
It's amazing.
We're gonna laugh about it tomorrow, and that's it. That's fine, right? Because for us, we're very clear on why we're doing this. We're very clear on why we continue to step up and raise our hand to do more. Because financially, you could say, well, we could have gone a different direction and just grown financially more, but we continue to put ourselves out there and, like for myself, kind of in the spotlight, take on more responsibilities and be in positions that are very uncomfortable because we have a mission. We want to really represent our minorities. We want to represent our underserved community because we truly feel that that's why we have what we have.
You're the blueprint.
Yeah.
I mean, you are the blueprint. If I was growing up today and I came across what you guys were doing, I would say I need to be in the room with you guys. I need to figure out what you're doing so that I could, learn from you. And I think that's essentially who we're trying to touch. As you guys are growing your business, you're starting to move into different markets. You're starting to grow not only on the loan side, but on the real estate side that fuels the loan side. And so, anybody that's listening that's trying to get in the room with powerful people to learn how to overcome those things that are holding you back, these are the folks to talk to. And so at the end of it, I'll connect you guys and show you how you can get a hold of them. But one of the things that, we all, like, who we are as individuals stems back from how we were brought up. And one of the most remarkable things about Juan is that he has a resilience with him that unlike anybody I've ever seen. So my role is to make sure that loans move through smoothly. And if there's an issue, that I remove the barrier out of the way as fast as possible to get everybody back on the road to getting more business. Like, I believe that loan officers live in between two and he's an exception to this, but into two emotions. You're either ultra confident or you have anxiety. And if you have anxiety, you're not selling. And so my job, and as leaders' jobs in the mortgage industry, if you're not doing this, you need to figure out ways to remove anxiety before there is anxiety. So we're constantly looking, and we try to keep Juan out of it. But but I realize now how your office works. There's an issue. Juan's right there. He already knows about it before I know about it. I'm like, guys, can you keep Juan out of it? Just tell me, right? So then we can fix it before Juan knows. But he doesn't live his life in a mode of being upset. He's like, hey, heads up on this one. Can you guys fix it? Whereas maybe another LO would be like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? Like, there's drama. But he is like the calming influence of always. And even when I don't think it could be done, he's like, it could be done. And then we get it done. But where does that come from, Juan? Like, for you, like, because I don't know if you watched this and decided it's a strategy, or this is just how you are in life. But you have always been a calming influence on how to resolve problems. Not always. I mean, it might come across like that, but I do get upset, like, probably 100 times a day. But I'm used to it. I know I had to keep on moving forward. We have to get the job done. So I can get upset, but I know in the next 5 seconds I have to regroup, be okay again. Yeah. Right. So I'm just used to going through the motions a lot quicker, maybe than a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But I'm just used to it. Like we've been in the industry for quite a bit. A good colleague of mine. I don't know if she's going to watch this, Yesenia Alfaro. Mm-hmm. She used to do a lot of our loans when it was just me and Nora doing real estate, and she would handle most of our buyers. She would always come up with problems like, oh, I can't. And I would get stressed out, and go in to try to see, figure out what yes. If I could give her an idea or something like that. She's a badass mm-hmm. officer, right? So it's not like she needs too much, but sometimes she would get stressed out, and I would just be like, just fix it. Like, I don't want to hear about it. Just fix it. Just fix it. And so they know me like that. I think that's what they I don't think it's my nickname, but they're like, oh, no, it is. Oh, here comes Mr. Just Fix It. It is. Alfredo told me that you remind him of the guy from Saturday Night Live that's like, just fix it. This is just fix it. Yeah. But I was like, oh my gosh, that is totally him, because it is a refreshing piece. But I think that's a good leadership trait that people don't have. Like, you can't let exterior forces impact your internal process, right? So you don't let that impact your business, and I think that that's a really good trait to have. But yes, and I know they're going to come back. Like, I know there's problems that they're not going to be able to fix, right? But that's the mindset. Like, for me, one of the most important things is mindset. Like, that's everything. Like, even me, like, I'll have Nora knows, like, I'll have my weeks or sometimes whole seasons where I'm like just negative, like I'm in mm-hmm. a negative situation, and the only thing that gets me back is mindset, like, reading books or listening to stuff that gets me back on my mojo. But the mindset is the most important thing in my opinion, or probably one of the most important things. So I know as soon as I tell them, like, fix it, their mindset is going to switch to fixing it rather than coming up with excuses or figuring out ways it doesn't work. So as soon as I tell them, like, hey, there's no other option, you got to fix it, then their mindset has to switch at that time. It switches. And you can ask Bianca, like, she comes and she's like huffing and, like, Juan. And I'm like, just fix it. And she looks at me like, isn't it your job to fix it? I'm like, no, just fix it. Like, you messed it up, you fix it. And I know that there's going to, they might come back and I still have to get involved, but at least I want them to go through the process of trying to figure out how they could think differently to fix or overcome that issue that they're having. And by the way, there's when I look at assistants, and not to take anything away from anybody, but she is remarkable in how she puts a business case together to get a deal done. Like, she takes this. you say fix it, I see the back end where it comes to me and she's done an entire business case on explaining why we should do the deal. And I'm like, I'll take it from here. Let me go fight the fight, and make this deal work. But I love what you guys have. And by the way, I know she's family, but she really, really cares about what's happening. And so let me ask this question, because you said it. So when you're in that space of the negativity and you're in that mindset that you want to break out of, how does Nora help you out of it?
I think she does.
Okay.
Not right now. She's traveling 24/7.
Yeah.
I just, I've always kind of done my internal. I'm kind of like, I don't want to say I'm a loner, because I'm not, but I like to do my internal process and just kind of figure it out that way. And then there's stuff, sometimes, when it's, I don't like to be like the person that is always like, oh, I can't do this. I can't. So, my personality is completely the opposite. But there has been situations, and she does the same thing, where it's like, shit, I can't, and I go to her, and we always she always has the right response, and I'm like, okay, I already knew that, but like sometimes you just need to hear it from your partner, and she's done that same thing, but I think we're very used to like figuring our own issues out.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest thing that we have is that, again, going back to that we know, like, when important decisions need to be made, like, we'll go and we can communicate like within 2-3 minutes, which is, I gotta explain. So I'm the oldest. We're about 4 or 5 years apart, and he doesn't like to say it like this, but we've been like inseparable our whole lives, right? Like we've done so much together. We have a very unique brother and sister. We're so different on top of that. Like, my personality is completely different. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want anything to do with the front, in camera being anything. And I'm okay with that. And, and he's very good. He's very good with being like, a small circle with few people, which is the reason why we've been able to, as a family, and as partners in business, we've been able to truly, there's a huge trust, right? There's a huge trust in the fact that, again, whatever decision we make, good or bad, things go well or things do not go well, we're always going to have kind of, each other's back, in the sense of, you made the best decision in that moment that you could, and yes, it
or
failed.
Even you didn't, and it's fine. We'll fix it.
We'll fix it. Yeah, we'll fix it. And as family, we will always have that. And I think as family as well, it's not easy, because I think as family, it's been very tough, where we've, some of the partners actually that I had before he was my partner in real estate and things that we did, like, they weren't necessarily happy with the fact that, like, we were so close in a way, or that I was kind of, vouching for him. Because he has a completely different style. Like, when he told me he wanted to be a real estate agent, because his personality is so different. He's like, yeah, I think I'm ready. I want to get my license. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I don't know if you're going to make it, to be honest with you, because I don't know. He doesn't have the patience. Mm-hmm. He's very patient. Like, and so I was like, okay, well, he got his license. I'm like, we'll see what happens, right?
If anybody meets me, they would never think that I can sell anything, because it's, I have that very dry personality. It's like,
very dry,
how the
very
hell
dry.
These guys sell me anything,
Absolutely, but
I can.
Oh no, I know you can.
But it's not
clearly
necessarily to me. It's not about selling. It's more about when you understand something's good for someone, you're able to help them understand and see all the different angles. And so what ended up happening through that, he got into the industry. He was an agent. I was, at that time, I didn't have my own team. Mm-hmm. Actually, I was leading someone else's team, and I was the main sales manager there. And so he came under those ranks, kind of like at the same level as everyone else in the team. And
like
he just
I was a
showing agent, buyer's agent. But he grabbed onto the fact that he just needed to outwork everyone. And that's what he did. He did it, very well. And so over the years, then it was very clear that, like, we both care. And that's when you mentioned Bianca, I think that's one of the biggest things that we have in our team, is that everyone in our team absolutely is passionate and driven to help that first-time home buyer. Mm-hmm. And the harder, it's not good to say it that way, because of course we like people, when they're ready to go, credit is, 800, the income's there. We obviously love to work with them. But there's something about working with a customer that is the kind of like the underdog in a way, like where they could, like, no one else was going to take this amount of time, this amount of effort. to really get them through the door to become homeowners. And for us, it almost feels like it's a win when we're able to do that, and we're able to really accomplish something that we know very few people would have been able to accomplish. And we can do it as a team, and we're all celebrating at the closing, like when it's that client that we know, like from our escrow team, or everyone's celebrating, like, oh my goodness. And all of a sudden we feel we met our challenge, or we've met that, and no, all of a sudden here comes another file, right, or another customer with a very complicated situation, and now we have to.
Every time
they never stop coming.
And we
it is hard, yeah.
And we never, and we don't say no. Like for us, it would be very easy to say, oh, we don't want to focus on that, or we want to just like. For us, it's like, no, we want to dive all in. The team and our team.
I think we're just used to that from the very onset. Just whatever you want to call it, we had to work the hard files because I was the bottom of the pecking order, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think that was always, I think me and Nora were always, that was our mindset to help. If somebody didn't want to help a certain client out because of whatever, like we were there to see, like, hey, let's see how we can fix this, figure it out. And that's my mentality. Like I look at stuff, and I'm always looking at, like, how do I solve it?
Do you guys even have an idea of how many families you've helped that no one else would help, that own property now because of you stepping in to change their life? Like, do you have an idea? Like, there's thousands? Is it,
I mean, I would say maybe hundreds of families.
Yeah, we could.
Like special situation, I would say, yeah. I mean, there's quite a few people that could probably say, that team or that agent, whether it be Nora or me, really made the difference between where I'm at right now and where I used to be and where I'm at right now.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the goal because, part of, the, what you described, like, hey, growing up, like, the going back to, like, the roots and figuring out, hey, why are you doing this, is aside from our parents not, having, good paying jobs or, anything like that, they were smart. They were smart enough to have purchased, nothing crazy like what we have going on right now. But when it was the right time, they did make a move, and those moves, did make a difference in our lifestyle. Not when we were growing up, but later on, it definitely did change their financial landscape.
Amazing. Yeah.
And we didn't think that was even a possibility until we saw, like, suddenly my dad's refinancing one of his, his first property, cashing out, like, I don't remember, but it was like
175,000,
close to 200,000. About that type of money, we always knew, like, shit, like, you can save, like, maybe a couple $100 a month. Doing the math, like, my dad makes X amount of dollars, and this or that, like, this guy could, he might save $5 at the end of the month. And I was like, oh shit, and later on, we were able to have a little bit of the luxuries, when I was, in high school and stuff like that. And it was all because of real estate. Like,
all because of real estate, everything.
He made the right move. He was patient. He just sat on stuff, and that made a big difference.
You're watching all of this.
Yeah. Even when I started my real estate career, she had already been in the industry, but she wasn't really. Her mindset was not on investments. She was being mentored to, like, stay focused on the sales and managing the sales team and stuff like that. But when I got in, that was my mindset, and definitely the little capital that my dad had made a huge difference, starting out, because I went into it with no money. I was actually negative. I had, credit card debt and all kinds of stuff. And so I never would have thought, like, hey, I'm going to even have, $5,000 or $10,000 to make an investment. But my dad did have a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And so that made a big difference. So I think with the people that we help, like, we see that as, like,
it's possible.
Your situation looks dire right now. It looks bad. But real estate may change that in a few years.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
I mean, that's where generational wealth comes in. It's like equity.
That's what we tell customers. Like, hey, you got to jump in. You have to jump in and do it and wait. 5-10 years down the road, you should be in a way better situation than if you just rent.
I love it. How are we doing on time, Fubs? Okay, what are we at? We got 10 minutes. Okay, so I want to jump into a question because I want to get this piece because it's really the everything that this podcast is about. So tell me about your breakthrough moment, and really, we say this, amongst ourselves, but I don't say it enough. We don't really care about the success. I mean, you're here because you're successful. We're all in the room together because we want to do more together. But I want to understand, and I think what the audience wants to understand is, what was it like in those moments in life, or if you could pick a moment where your back was against a wall, it didn't seem like there were any other options, and you had to reset the way you were thinking in order to break through to the next level, because you guys are seeing success that most people in this market are not seeing. You're seeing a success in a way that there are people exiting mortgage right now because it is so hard. And it is hard. Don't get me wrong. But you are making it work. You are figuring out the ways to have. So tell me about a time where you guys back against a wall, and it could be your story, Nora, or yours, Juan. We can do both, but I am curious about the breakthrough moment for you.
You want to start, Juan?
Yeah. For me, it's very clear. I've had a lot of, I guess, breakthrough moments throughout our childhood and things like that. But, growing up, like I said, things got a little bit better towards the end of my high school. And so, things were fine. And that kind of led me into a different path after high school and stuff like that. So I wasn't doing too well, right? Mm-hmm. Personally, got into a little bit of trouble, things like that. So I was kind of I kind of hit rock bottom when I was around 20, 21, right?
Okay.
Rock bottom looked like
yes.
He wanted to be he wanted to be an FBI agent, just FYI.
Okay.
Because he always thought DA. He wanted to do that.
I had watched a lot of movies.
Yes.
And now
it was an interesting thing. Okay.
And he was going to join the military. All of a sudden, he wasn't able to do that because of the decisions he made. And family and everybody was we were obviously, everybody was worried, right? Like I told you, we're very close in a way. So everyone's worried. And he's just not getting it. And he's stuck in this thing, at that age, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. So what was the breakthrough?
So the breakthrough was, I had got my license, but I was still kind of in my, my slump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got my license. I would try, but it wasn't I wasn't doing too great
right.
The first year. And it was just there. It was just at first I saw it it was just a job, right? I was still trying to get my degree online for college. So it was just, and I was going through my thing, right? I met my wife and she got pregnant. So that completely changed my mindset, and it's kind of like what Nora touches on with, she's not scared of making her a fool of herself, because she's kind of in her mind, she's advocating for other people. It's not her. It's not about her. So as soon as I realized that my wife was pregnant, everything came back.
It was not about you anymore.
It wasn't about me. The situation growing up, it's not that I had a hard life, but I didn't ever want any of my kids to be in
the slump you were in,
to ever feel like the underdog, or feel that they were in a situation where they were not equal, right? So I was and I got to work. I just changed my whole mindset. I used to be very no, I'm not gonna do that shit. I was always that situation. I'm not gonna, do something for somebody else, or I'm not going to, I had a big ego.
We all do, yeah. That's yeah.
I had a big ego, so every time somebody told me something I didn't like, I was just, well, F you, right? And I'm just gonna do something else. But as soon as that moment, I was like, shit, I'll do whatever it takes. I don't care if anybody's being an asshole. I'm just gonna do whatever I need to do so I can, get over the top.
Nor was it? You're not saying this, but I think if I'm hearing you right, being able to see that Nora was just a few steps ahead of where you were, that you had a mentor in your sister that was okay, she's already a realtor, so that's a path that maybe I could think was an option.
I wasn't highly successful at that time.
But I did see it. You know, obviously you were
I didn't think I was highly successful.
A step up from whatever the hell I was doing.
That's what I'm saying. So even her, she's like, I wasn't doing great, but it was still better than where you were at. Yeah.
You know, she's always had a lot of potential, and like she said, sometimes she can't see it, right? And so the way, like I said, as soon as I found out, my whole perspective, I was like, you know, I would be in the office. You know, it would be normal that I would stay in the office until 11 p.m. Right, and wake up, you know, 7, 8 in the morning, right. And I wouldn't do that for anything.
You had purpose.
Like I was always kind of like, you know, the slacker in high school. Like,
oh yes,
because you know I could get stuff done, so I knew it was like I'll just show up. Like I still kind of do that sometimes. If you can imagine with our appointments stuff like that. But I'm like, I know I'll go.
You know where you're at, yeah.
And I'll be able to do just enough because I'm, you know, I can get stuff done. Right?
Yeah, because you're doing what matters.
So I'll share a quick story. Let me share a quick story. So my dad got him a job when he was 16, 17 years old. Because my dad is very proud, you know, hardworking, and he's at the what is it, Campo de Golf, right? The golf course. And so he's like, we're gonna get you a job, you know, just so you can make some money. So he goes into the job, and he's like, because Juan's walk was like he has like a slow walk. Like he's just like,
I'd be
whatever.
hitting the nightclubs and then have to go to work at 5 in the morning. So I was just like half asleep.
And so my dad's like, hey, you need to, like, when you go to work, like pick up
walk
your
with
pace,
purpose, yeah.
Pick up your pace, and he wouldn't care. And so everybody at his job, at my dad's job, would be telling my dad, making fun of him, like, oh, your son, like, you know, what is going on here? Like, he's not going to amount to, like, what are you doing? Like, you need to like push him along. And so it was funny because we talk about that today, right?
I didn't care because I was just like, I'm not worried about this, you know, job. Because I had in my mind, I had like different goals, right? So
it's amazing when you're that young. It's like, I know I'm not going to do this. I don't know what I'm going to do, but this isn't it kind of thing. Yeah.
And it's not a good mentality to have, like, because that put me back in that's what I tell everybody that, you know, that works with us, works for us, whatever. And I tell them all that story all the time. Like, you know, having that slacker mentality of like, oh, you know, you don't need to try as hard as everybody else. It doesn't work. It's an ego thing. I mean, it truly is. Yeah. And like I said, literally that one situation that I told you completely changed my mindset.
Life. Yeah, I love that.
And once I experienced, I'm like, shit, like I was a fucking idiot. You know?
I hope
having that mindset before this, because you know, there's jobs that you have to try your hardest, and even, you know, and I think that's also like an excuse. Like a lot of stuff that like you think that, okay, maybe I'm not gonna be able to, you know, achieve this. It's easier for you to be like, oh yeah, like I don't want to do it anyways, right? But when you get into the hard work of it, you see what other people, you know, in you know, with Nora being my partner, it's like now there's commitment, there's all this stuff, and as soon as I changed that mentality, I kind of saw, like, you know, I saw all the potential that we had together and that she had. So I immediately started, you know, you know, having more, you know, conversations about growing and masterminding. Like, hey, this is not what we need to do. You
knew you can operate on a higher level. Yeah. So I hope for you, Juan, and for them, that your firstborn at some point hears this to know that they were the reason that your life changed, or that you changed your life, because, you know, there's always something that really shifted our mind. And, you know, for you it's very similar to my daughter. Like, you know, she was getting in a lot of trouble, and as soon as she got pregnant, I remember my wife calling me saying, you know, she wasn't happy, right? And I was like, actually, I think that's the best thing. Like her being her, I'm actually happy. And literally, she just flipped and has been like, you know, is doing really well now. But I think that sometimes when you start to care for other people before yourself, then it requires you to elevate, you know, how you operate. Yeah. So Nora, tell us yours. Tell us your breakthrough story.
Well, I mean, I can tell you a lot of different ones because I've had, you know, we're the opposite, right? For me, I've always tried so hard, right? I'm the firstborn, I'm the first granddaughter, and that means a lot in our family. Like, I had to kind of set the tone, set the pace. So I was always overachieving. I'm the one that, ended up like telling my dad, and while we were growing up, because I was older than Juan and my younger brother, and I was like, hey, I don't want them to work as hard as I had to work, so cut them some slacks, help them out a little bit more. So the idea was that I was always kind of like that third parent. I was kind of
the opposite of
Yeah, you were the opposite. You were exactly
you heard.
I heard the opposite, like you advising them. I kind of heard the opposite advice.
No, I was you can ask him today. Like I was always like them taking it easy and me wanting to contribute. Like I remember one of the biggest things that I wanted when I was like getting my own money, my own job, 13, 14, is I always wanted them to have good shoes. Like my my baby brother who was 2, 3 years old. Like, so I would spend my money in buying them buying them shoes, because I know my parents couldn't afford those. So
they couldn't be rolling around on Pro Wings at the time.
So I was kind of like wanting them to have a better life than me. Yeah. So in a way I was like that third parent. He doesn't see it that way, but that kind of was my feeling throughout. And so I've had that pressure that, of needing to do something and being someone, right? Always. And so through that, you put yourself and you're constantly going through breakthroughs, I would say. But I'll tell you the biggest, and when I really said enough is enough, in the sense of like, I'm going to go for bigger things, because for me, I just wanted to kind of have a good lifestyle, simple, modest. It was when my son, my son's 6, 7 years old, and I'm a very loyal person, so I'll stay somewhere, and I'll commit to something for a very long time. So at that time, I had been, committed to kind of this team where I was managing, and the idea there was, I could stay here for a long time. I was, it was a good kind of routine, and all of a sudden, I was just feeling like there was growth, but none of that growth was really for me, right? And it was fine. But then I was fine with it, and then I started kind of in some negotiations back and forth with my role at that time. I was just noticing, like, gosh, I'm getting kind of like the short end of the stick here. And then I was kind of like, just feeling like that over and over. It wasn't like, oh, today and then tomorrow. I'm like, no, it was like over time that I was kind of feeling that way. And I remember, and I was working super hard because I'm a hard worker, opposite of Juan.
I'm clearly, a hard worker too.
Yeah, today he is, but at the time for me, it's like, I'll go somewhere and I'll go above and beyond.
Yes.
I'll go above and beyond always. Like if you tell me to be here till 5, I'll be here later. So at that time, I'm like, I'm going above and beyond. My son is young. My family, like our family's growing. I'm dedicating a lot of time to this, and I'm just like, gosh. So I'm evaluating my thing. Like, how do I, like, what do I need to do here? There's a message here for me. Like, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, right? So I think that's another thing. Like when something tells you like it's time.
Yeah, listen. Yeah.
Like something. So I was like, there's something. So I remember the tipping point was for me. I was like driving, and I'm always in a rush to like to the next thing. Yeah. Like I'm getting my son to school, then I'm going back to the office, or I'm doing this. And then my son was riding with me because I decided to take him into pay for a private school that was far from our house. And so the drive was long, and I'm sitting there and I'm like opening just the conversation. I'm like, Papi, right? That's like, Papi, so tell me, I wanted him to just talk. He's 6. And so tell me, because it's about quality, not quantity, right? That's all I had with him. So I asked him, I was like, so tell me, if somebody was to ask you today to describe your mom and your dad, can you do that for me, right? And so he's like, and I'm getting emotional already, because at that time he started saying, oh yeah, he's
gonna get a crier.
Yeah. So that's what you wanted, Chris. Gosh, that's why you made the break.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Yes, let's go.
So it's terrible. Gosh.
You're good.
But the point is that at that time, I asked him that question. And he went on and talked about his daddy. My dad's a fixing daddy. My dad's this daddy. My dad's that daddy. And I was like, awesome. So now he's moving on to me, and he basically, said, oh, it's a working mommy. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like that hurt so much, because there was it was a 1-sentence response from him. So at that point I said, if I don't have the guts to go after bigger and better things for myself.
Can we get her tissue, please? Sorry.
Please, I have to at least do it for him.
Yeah.
Because at that time, Chris, I had already gotten some not so great news about family, about things, that he was going to have to kind of go through in his life. And I said, I have to be stronger, or I have to go for it for him. So again, our children, right? Our children. And so so basically when I had to go for it and make that decision, because based on loyalty, the thing would have been I stay there, or I do the same thing, or I continue kind of growing at someone else's pace, right? Yeah. Not my pace. I said, no, I have to go for this because of him, because of all the time I've been away and all the time I'm going to need to be away, right? To build something, it takes commitment, it takes sacrifice. It has to be worth it for him, right? And so obviously we are where we're at today. He's not 18, 19 years old. And I can tell you that from the age of, so that was 6, 7, right? It took me another 4 or 5 years. I went in it hard. Like that, when Juan tells you, we went it hard. That's when I said, hey, I'm leaving. This is my step. He's like, I'm obviously with you. Like, let's go. And I was like, we're going to work super hard. Like, we're going to build this. I've been building someone else's.
Nora always had that, doubt, I did too. Obviously, I knew way less than she did.
But you saw her bigger than she saw herself.
And like I said,
exactly.
During that time, every time, up to that moment, like I said, I was never willing to be like, you're not going to get one over me. Or, for me, it was always a negotiation, right? I'm not going to work harder than what, just because whatever, right? But for her, it was a situation of me saying like, hey, I have to make a change in my life.
Hey, can we edit all the crying out?
No, that's not going to happen. Sorry, that's not happening.
You're like,
yeah. No, but thank you for being vulnerable with us. I mean, that's a big deal.
So for me, it was like, it was kind of perfect because I needed to make a change. And I'm like, if I'm willing to get the short end of the stick for somebody, or feel like, because sometimes like me and her fight all the time.
We fight
when
all
we
the
started,
time.
like I felt like she was, I don't want to say any bad words, but I was like, all the time I was like, shit, Nora, like, because I would do stuff, and then it was just a constant fighting situation.
But let me just jump in with this real quickly. There's a candor that happens when you can't divorce the other person. Yeah. You guys are going to be brother and sister no matter what. Yeah. So you'll treat it differently if it's a different worker. You can't tell them what you're really thinking. Right. You guys aren't going anywhere. Right. So when you remove that I can divorce you mentality, then the truth comes out, and you almost have to appreciate that level of candor, because you're not going to get it anywhere else in life.
Correct. Yeah.
Except for your sister. Yeah. And then I tell my kids all the time, like the relationship between brother and sister is so special because no one will know you better than your brother or your sister. And they'll know things that you're ashamed of. They'll know things, 100%. Everything in a way that, and they still love you no matter what. So, but you got emotional when she got emotional. Why is that?
Because it's part of my family too, so.
Chris.
Fucking Chris.
I'm not doing it because I'm fucking with you. I'm just doing it because the reason why I wanted you guys to be on here is because as an outsider looking in, I had an out-of-body experience when we met for dinner that night, that I was like, I wish I had y'all's relationship as with my siblings. And so when I see what you guys have, I'm like, you guys don't realize how special how you guys have each other's back is, and how you've been able to grow a business, and how proud your family has to be looking at what you guys are doing every day. So today is about forcing you guys to take a moment to just take a step back and say, we've been grinding this out, but I appreciate you, because you guys have something really special that nobody could ever take that away from you guys.
So no, Chris, the truth is, we're super tough. Gosh, we're super tough. And obviously what I can tell you is that, so when he's telling his story about his breakthrough, what he left out of that is that, this woman that came into his life, she's a partner for the rest of our family. And so today he has 3 beautiful children that are part of the, the blessings that I count in my life, and his wife, who's my best friend, that came in and said, you know what, let's pick up whatever we need to pick up. Like, where do I need to clean up? Where do I need to fix? How do I help you guys? How do I make your life easier? she's a huge partner. And so our family really has been blessed with everyone. You know, my husband is, you know, he's been an amazing partner. And, you know, life is not easy. But like you said, when the option is not divorce, you figure out everything else because you realize that you know, whatever we're dealing with today, it's, you know, we're having a bad season, a bad, you know, month, it's okay because I've seen you at your best and you are someone that I absolutely love and adore, and I would not give up anything for it. So with Juan, I can tell you that, when I told him, so basically at that moment I was like, okay, I was pissed really is what it was, because I'm like, I can't believe I can't get the negotiation to go my way, where I've worked so hard in this moment, you know, to be here. And the negotiations were just not, like, I was not getting, you know, what I needed at that time.
And for me, I was able to see it from the outside. She was a little bit more involved.
Yeah, I was more attached, more loyal, more emotional. And he was able to see it, and he's like, no, like, let's go. And that's what the part of him not being like emotional. He's been that way all his life.
But you need that, because that's a yin and yang of the relationship. Yeah.
Because he's like, no, I got this. So when he says we were working, we went out and we said, okay, now we have to build the Nora Aguirre team. And he's willing to build that. He doesn't care about him. You know, it's like, no. And he's like, yeah, I'll be your agent.
That's why I said it was perfect situation, because it's like, I knew I had to make a difference in my life. So it was either that or go do it somewhere else. But I knew I had to, like, hustle, work my ass off like I never
did in your life,
for anything else. And I decided to do it to build her up, because I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna do it for anybody, it would only be her, right? I wouldn't do it for anybody else at that time. So I just got, and I didn't care. There was a lot of shit that I was like, a lot of, you know, slides, or, you know, I was like one of those guys that's like, you slight me in the minimist, and I'm like,
I'm out.
That's it, you're done.
But you can't do that with your sister.
And I wanted to a lot of times. Like,
no, I'm you can't.
I'm gonna just go do something else. But it was like, I always, you know, I had that something inside of me change, and I was like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. You know, I always had the mentality, okay, if it doesn't work out in a year or two, then I'll go from there. But for right now, I'm not gonna care about anything.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna care, you know, about what anybody thinks or says or whatever, or how they treat me. I'm just focused on, you know, making her a badass, and
I love that.
We achieved it, you know.
I love that.
Yeah. It takes a lot of it takes that type of loyalty and commitment, you know, at that time. And so we started off with just him and I, and then a part-time assistant, right? Part-time assistant. That time we're like, we need somebody to do the paperwork, because he doesn't like paperwork. I don't like paperwork. We're like, we need somebody to support us in that. And so we had a part-time assistant, and we went full throttle. And from there, I can tell you,
I don't like anything that feels like I'm wasting my time.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same. Yeah.
The goal at that time was, you know, grow. And we just, you know, kept on, you know, he wasn't a partner at that time. He was kind of, like he said, working under my team.
But Nora had a big enough, you know, present, like, people knew her in the, you know, to where she was able to partner up with somebody that was
leverage it,
like, higher level. And it didn't last too long, because we, you know, like I said, Nora's always kind of had that fear of, like, you know, I don't know what it, like, I don't want to speak for you, but it's been like, maybe we're not smart enough, we're not good enough.
Like I told you, I've always, it's still to this day, like, I'm like, what?
And I was always telling her, like,
it's been a thing, because.
And I was telling her, like, we're already doing it. How are we not good enough?
But you need to hear that sometimes. His confidence, you need to hear that.
We already doing everything.
His confidence is again through the roof, where mine is not through the roof. And so when we've had those conversations, he's like, even before anything, there's been people like, I'm like, this is the conversations. Oh my God, that person is so amazing. They're this, they're that. Cause I'm constantly like evaluating. I'm like, he's like, they're not that much better than like what you have going on. I'm like, how you don't, I said, I can't believe you don't see. He's like, yeah, no, I'm serious. Like, so
but you need that in your life. You need to have those people around you. Like your entire success has been around, you know, embedded in a thought process of worthiness or lack thereof, and you still continue to break through. And so for those listening who, are worried about getting on video because I can't remember my lines, or you're worried about, what other people are going to think if you get on stage and bomb. If you're worried about getting in a room with other people and selling yourself, at the end of the day, if you put those clients needs before your own, amazing things will happen because you start to perform for them versus you. And I think both of what you said is embedded there. There's a lot of loyalty from the family perspective, but there's in both of your success stories, it's really rooted in, I don't want to let my family down, and therefore I'm putting them first. And it's interesting you said it, because I thought you were going to say after you had that conversation with your son, you pulled back, but you actually just got smarter in how you approach the business.
I was sad. I was absolutely sad at that moment that that's all he knew, and that I didn't have financially. I didn't feel I had anything to hold on to, anything that I can, any sort of security that I can give him. I didn't think that, I had really made an impact. Like at that moment, I worked hard, but that's all I had. I didn't have, huge investments. Maybe at that time I had already bought a house, a rental, or this and that. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is what he's going to remember. Like his mom worked to death, and there's very little to show for it. And I didn't want that. So that's why
and I think it did make a difference.
It made a tremendous difference, because it was...
Now, right before he went to college, you asked him, probably not the same question, but you had a conversation that was probably in comparison to that question when you asked him when he was 6.
100%.
And his response was way different.
100%. And that's what I wanted to do. Is
yes,
at that time,
I want to hear that.
At that time, his response was that. And then that's what I'm saying. It took me 4 to 5 years of us working, hustling together and doing everything. Still, through a lot of time away, a lot of, prices that were being paid. But I knew that when he became a teenager, so like around 12, 13, that I wanted more time, freedom of time. And so when you're financially in a position, you were able to kind of, have that. So at that age, I was very intentional about my time with him. At the age of 12, 13, I began to really focus on giving him experiences. And so we traveled a lot. I took a lot of time away from, the business. But again, I'm very intentional when I'm there. And then when I'm out, I'm with him. And so we began to travel. I sent him to summer camp, in Cancun, because I wanted him to really get a feel for his culture. You knew you
didn't have to work every minute of your
100%.
life.
Yeah, and by that time we had already invested. We started up an investment company with Juan and I and my father. And my father was, it's amazing. He was, the financial backing of the company, because in the beginning stages, because it wasn't our money. We didn't have a lot. You
were using your underwriting skills on deals and finding deals with his money backing, which is the way investment companies should work. Like in the beginning, it's like somebody has the money, somebody has the hustle to go find the deal.
Correct.
Somebody has the ability to underwrite the deal, and then post deal, it's like everything 100%. Afterwards. So like that's like the most perfect situation.
Yeah, so we started that company up. What was it, like 2013, 20?
To be honest with you, 14? I didn't really know what I was doing.
2013.
I didn't start knowing how to underwrite stuff.
Yeah, at that time at that time you're just like, we know we have some cash. We know there's cheap property.
I know it's one of my mistakes, that for the same reason that I'm, sometimes she says that I'm way overly confident. I think I'm just like what I need to be in most cases.
You have to, yeah.
But that also I think has, probably been a mistake, because I've never taken any type of mentorship or and I should in most people that.
But you read a lot of books.
I do read a lot of books.
He reads a lot. So the goal at that time is that we started that investment company. My dad funding it, and then Juan. We started focusing on his time being spent on investing and thinking more about that. So we intentionally took him away from some of the stuff in the real estate side. So the family, again, really seeing everyone's true colors and abilities, saying, oh, you're really good at that. And my dad and I both said, oh, he's really good at making decisions, because he's not emotional. And I've already had failure in my life. I had lost everything. And my dad's very, you could call him, he has
super conservative.
Super conservative.
So you need all of that, yes.
So my dad and I would have not put deals together if it was up to us, because we are conservative. because Juan hasn't really lost in that way, like he wasn't in the recession that way because he had just started up, but he did, he was able to take decisions and take risks. When we would have said no to the deal, he said yes.
So I got to ask two questions. Sorry to interrupt, but I got to ask two questions. One, and then we got to close out because we're way over time. Yeah. But so the first question is, if you don't mind, you don't have to disclose a number, but I want a ballpark. Do you guys, if you take that company that you have, that real estate company, and you just look at that, you guys have millions of dollars in real estate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't be afraid of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're successful. And I think that's what, because in anything that I knew about you, it wasn't until he and I went a little bit deeper to understand that you guys are doing some pretty significant thing, multi-unit properties, stuff that people want to be involved in. I want to be in the apartment game. You guys are already there. You're investing in places that, that a lot of people don't even know is a really good opportunity. The second thing is, tell me what your son said the second time you asked.
So yes. So after investing and pouring into it, I asked him, I said, so what is it, so papi, what, if you had to describe, like, what is your, and the truth is the reason the question comes out is because I've told him, I said, papi, I just want to say that I'm sorry because I know when you were little, I wasn't there. Right. And that hurts a lot. She's like, Mom, so he would look at me. He's 6'4", so he looks down on me, hugs me, and he's a hugger. He's a very sweet person. And so he says, Mom, you don't have to apologize for absolutely anything. You were there the whole time. And if you weren't there, you made sure that I was with the right people that were taking care of me. I was around love, and I'm lucky. He's like, you don't understand how lucky I am. So obviously for me,
full circle,
he's such a grateful human being. He takes nothing for granted as far as what our life is. But he understands that he lives a different life than I've lived. He understands that, he's been able to travel, and he's very grateful for it. So for me, the goal was that he really he's already at the age that he's seen. He's been able to see, what our family has been able to create, what the opportunities are, what the prices have been, because he knows he doesn't, again, because he doesn't come from a place of, I'm going to blame you in a way, but he knows that I wasn't there for a long time, for all those years. And he has a hard life, ahead of himself with certain things. And he's okay with it because he always says, he's like, the biggest blessing that I have is the family. You just don't understand how blessed I feel. So don't apologize for anything. He always stops me right away. Good. So. Well,
first off, I love that he has the same sort of gratitude and that you would expect or that you would want. But I will tell you, you don't realize it, but you have a remarkable family. You have a remarkable family dynamic. You guys are ultra successful for a reason. But I don't know that I've ever said this when I've done a podcast, but I'm looking at Fabia because I don't know, Fabia, if I've ever said this, but I am just like, so humbled that you guys allowed me to hear your story, that you trusted me enough to come in and share some vulnerability and be emotional about it. So thank you for allowing me in the room with you guys, and not just with the podcast, but you being out here. You're here because you're supporting my NAREP chapter, and it means a lot to me. And the fact that, you trusted me, Juan, to go on this journey together, and I'm excited to see what we build from it. But I know that there's major opportunities. So if you're listening to this podcast, first off, like and subscribe, because I really want to get the word out on what we're doing. And the only way to do that is by your feedback. DM me. If you want to hear a certain podcast, or maybe you want to be on it. But follow Nora Aguirre. You could find her on Instagram. And is that your handle, Nora Aguirre?
Nora Aguirre Team.
Nora Aguirre Team?
Nora Aguirre Team.
You're not going to find Juan on there. Do you have an Instagram?
Yeah. You'll find him.
Okay.
He does.
You'll find me.
No, he does have an Instagram, and he has a Facebook.
Yes. I can't find you. He can't find you.
His last post is from 1985, something like that.
So, but no, I really appreciate you guys being here, and you look for them on YouTube, look for Nora Aguirre team everywhere on social because she's doing an amazing job. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing, not just for yourselves, but for Latinos across the country on who you're serving, and I appreciate you guys being on the podcast today.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chris. I think you opened up the space actually from yesterday because I know you were really vulnerable yesterday as well. So I do appreciate that. So I think you kind of opened up that space so that today we can also kind of be really open, really raw. So
thank you.
No, it takes an amazing person as well.
Oh my gosh,
to really
thank you.
Kind of allow this space to kind of open. So thank you.
I appreciate you.
I want to thank you too.
Thank you, bro.
It wasn't what I was expecting, and that's a good thing.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that, man. He came in before you came in. Yeah. He was making fun of me for crying yesterday. Before you got here, he literally made a jab at it.
Hey, and then look at this. I think I've seen that maybe a handful of times in my life. Maybe less than a handful. Like it's just So
thank you guys for doing it.
I definitely need the recording.
Yes, we got you
for the family.
Thank you guys.